Okay, everybody, it's right at 6 o'clock our time, so we are going to go ahead and get started with our webinar, and we're so happy to have all of you here with us tonight to join us for this. My name is Emily Lakemaker, and I am the Associate Director of Recruitment and Student Life here at the Rollins School of Public Health. And I want to give some logistics and some info right up here at the top. First of all, we are recording this session, so if you want to go back and watch this later, we will have this posted on our YouTube channel usually within about 3 to 5 business days after the live event. So you can look for it there. If you want to go back and try to listen to anything else that you missed, or go back and review anything, or share it with any friends that you have that you know are planning to apply to the School of Public Health. The way that we're going to work this is that we'll go through our entire presentation first, and throughout the evening as we're speaking, you should see the question section in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. You can see where my cursor is right now. Feel free to type in your questions at any time. Once we're completed with the presentation itself, we'll go through and read each question aloud and provide answers. That way everyone can hear the questions and hear the answers. We'll get through as many as we can in the hour that we have allotted. I'll be providing my contact information at the end, so if we don't get to your set question, you can always reach out to me directly. So I think with that, I'm going to allow my current students that are here with me to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Kate Foley. I'm a second-year EPI student. I'm from St. Augustine, Florida, and I got my bachelor's degree at Tulane University in New Orleans.
Hi, I'm Anuja Mathur. I'm also a second-year epidemiology student. I'm from Raleigh, North Carolina, and went to UNC Chapel Hill for my undergrad.
Hi, my name is Nimi Thomas. I am a second-year global epidemiology student. I'm from Plano, Texas, and I did my undergrad at Notre Dame.
Great. So our EPI students definitely get the prize tonight for volunteering to help out. We have other students in EPI, I promise. I promise. Okay, so tonight, guys, the things that we're going to cover, you can see here really quickly. We'll talk a little bit about each one of our different departments in the public health discipline section. We'll review what our this year's incoming class looks like to kind of give you a general idea of what an admitted student looks like. We'll review the general admissions requirements and processes. Then each different department, if they have any set prerequisites or what kind of specific type of student they may be looking for. And then from there, we'll kind of give some tips and advisement on the different parts of your application itself. And like I said, feel free to put in your questions at any time, and we'll get to those at the end of the session. So this slide right here, and I'm not going to sit here and read this to you. I'm confident in everyone's reading abilities that's on the webinar right now. But this just does kind of give a very brief snapshot, bullet point of each of the different departments. And when you're applying to a school of public health, specifically to Rollins and really to most schools of public health, you will be applying directly to a department. So you can kind of think of this as like a major if you want to compare it to something in undergrad. So I really recommend doing as much research as possible on these departments. Each one of these has a website within the Rollins website itself. And then also our course catalog lists all the different classes that are offered in each department. So I think that's a really good asset and a really good resource to try to get an idea of what each department is about. We also have our student ambassador group, which the 3 students that are here with me tonight are part of, and we've got representatives from each of the departments in that. And you can reach out directly to them, and we'll provide that information later on in the webinar. You can reach out directly to the ambassador group to maybe speak to a specific behavioral science health education student or a health policy management student. And the reason why I think it's so important to have a good idea of which department you want to go into is because once you're here, it is relatively difficult to switch departments. As I mentioned, you'll apply directly to one of these. That particular department will be the one that reviews your application. So if you come in thinking you want to do global health and they review your application and admit you, but then you decide you want to go to epidemiology, they haven't seen your application. And so it kind of adds an element of complication to just switch. It's not like undergrad where you can just switch majors. It's not to say that it's impossible or it doesn't happen, but the more research you can do and the more you can know about each department before coming in certainly helps. Do you guys have any input or any insight on how you selected your department? Like, how did you know EPI?
I was coming from a very biomedical science background in undergrad, so I knew I wanted to go into something that was equally like statistics-based or math and science-based, so epidemiology seemed like a good fit for me.
Okay.
I think that's true for me as well. I came from a heavy science background and was just lacking quantitative skills and thought it was, I mean, that definitely matches most with epidemiology's department, so that's how I ended up there.
I have the same science and math background, and I'm also interested in applying, well, I've already applied to medical school, so I thought that was the most relevant department to my career goals.
Yeah. And again, with all the different departments, you'll hear, you know, a range of different reasons, and we can easily connect you with students in other departments. So what does an incoming class look like? This is what the class that just started, class of 2018, this is kind of a snapshot of what the class looks like. We brought in about 550 students into the program. We only have fall enrollment, so we don't have spring enrollment. And 557 can sound large, and truthfully, we are one of the largest schools of public health. But when you think about the fact that that's across 7 different departments, 7 including our executive EMPH program, that kind of really does bring it down. I think epidemiology is probably one of our largest, with maybe bringing in about 100 to 120 each year in the cohort. And biostats, certainly our smallest, maybe 30, and followed by environmental health, which may have something along the lines of, you know, 50 or 60 or something like that brought into each one. So it really just kind of depends on which department you're applying to as to what your cohort is going to look like. You can see average age is about 26, and those ages range from 21 to 57. About 40% of our students are coming in straight out of undergrad, with about 60% coming in with work experience. And in those 60% with work experience, it's generally in the 2 to 3 year range, maybe something like Peace Corps or AmeriCorps, or, you know, working full-time for a few years before coming in. Did you guys, what was y'all status?
This is Anuja. I worked for 4 years actually before coming back to Rollins, and I was working in a laboratory research setting.
I took a gap year after I graduated from undergrad to apply to public health schools before I came here.
And I applied right out of undergrad, so I applied my senior year.
Okay. Yeah, so we've got a pretty good mix of that. So we don't have a set work experience requirement, except for our executive EMPH program, but we'll cover that on a specific slide later. You can see our average GRE scores here. Verbal 158, quantitative 159, analytical writing is about a 4.2. So, and with the GPA there, you can see about a 3.5 for students coming in with completed undergraduate work, and for those that are coming in with a previous graduate degree, it's about a 3.65. What I don't want students to freak out over with these numbers is seeing these and thinking, I'm not right at this, so I'm not going to apply, because these are just averages. We take above, we take below. Again, it may really depend on the department that you're applying to. Some departments value certain strengths over others. So don't see these numbers and think that's it, I'm not even going to bother. It's a very holistic approach, and I know students may tend to roll their eyes when they hear that word, but it's very true. You know, if we didn't need all the other parts of your application, like letters of rec and your personal statement and your transcripts and, you know, your resume and a CV, if we didn't need all of that, we wouldn't ask for it, because it'd just be a waste of time. If we went solely on these numbers, a computer program could do it, and we wouldn't need an admissions committee. So we really want to know everything that you feel that is important to tell us as an applicant. So be sure to not leave anything off. You can see that we've got 44 states and 29 countries represented. The breakdown, the gender breakdown, 76% female, 24% male. That's pretty standard across the board with schools of public health. Not too terribly different from anything else that I've seen. Students of color, about 40%, and our international student population is about 14%. And you can see those are made up from students from 29 different countries. So what does it take to apply overall? So first and foremost, you need to get very familiar with SOPHIS, which is the Schools of Public Health Application Service. If you did Common App in undergrad, this will look somewhat familiar to you. And so you'll submit everything through that. Nothing is going to come directly to us. You're going to submit everything to SOPHIS. When you're applying, you'll be able to apply to up to 3 different programs. But just put your first choice on SOPHIS, and then once we receive your application, you will receive an email from us requesting your second and third choices. That's our workaround to where you're not having to pay for that on SOPHIS. You can apply through SOPHIS for the top 3 that you want, but you'll have to pay individually for each 3. So just apply for your first, for your top choice, and then we will send you a form to give us your second and third choice. And you can see here that your application is only going to be reviewed by your second and third choices if you are waitlisted or denied by your first. Official transcripts from every institution attended. So that's at the university or college level. And so official, that means that it has to come from the university in a sealed envelope with the official seal, and that has to go directly to SOFIS. But that's the good thing about SOFIS, is that you only have to do this once regardless of how many schools you're applying to. We don't have a minimum GPA, but a 3.0 or higher is preferred. Again, if you're lacking in one area, maybe like your GPA, but you've got some strong GRE scores and maybe some research experience or work experience, going back to that holistic approach, certain things can kind of even some weaknesses out. So don't be completely discouraged by that GPA. A minimum of 2 letters of recommendation, but you can submit up to 3. And we'll go a little bit more into depth into what we're looking for in those letters of recommendation later on. Standardized test scores, the most common is GRE. Some departments will take MCAT. You would just need to reach out directly to the department. I know EPI for sure will take MCAT. Outside of that, you'd want to reach out directly to the department to see if that's a score that they would take. We do have some exemptions with that. If you're applying to our executive EMPH program, 2 of those 3 tracks do not require standardized test scores. If you are applying to the BSHE, our Behavioral Science Health Education program, and you already have a completed master's degree, you don't have to submit standardized test scores. And if you have a doctorate or MD earned in the U.S., already completed, you do not have to submit standardized test scores. You'll submit a statement of purpose and objectives along with a CV or a resume with that you want to be sure to list any research or work or volunteer hours. And again, we're going to go into more in depth on each of these later on in the presentation. And then for international students, there are a few extra steps you guys have to take. TOEFL scores and any transcripts from non-U.S. universities have to be evaluated by WES, which is the World Education Service. And you'll have to submit a financial certificate showing funding for at least 1 year of study in the U.S. So now we're going to kind of get into the different department prereqs and based on what each department is looking for. We've kind of got this slide divided up, what's looking on the quantitative side versus the qualitative side. And I don't want you to see this and think, oh, well, I'm applying to BSHE, so I don't have to have strong quantitative scores, because that's not really the case. You know, each program is looking for a good balance. We just kind of want to show this as generally what the strengths are of each student in these different departments. And you can kind of see on the left-hand side with the quantitative, if you're looking at any of our MSPH programs, which is the Masters of Science in Public Health, that's really going to those strong quantitative scores are going to be very important. Behavioral science, health education, and health policy management, specifically that policy side, they're really looking for a lot of strong communication and writing skills. So qualitative scores are going to be very important. So it really depends on the different departments you're applying to and ultimately what your career goal is and where you want to end up as to what different kind of skill sets the departments are looking for. Diving into these specifically, biostats and bioinformatics, this is certainly our smallest department. They're going to want, and you're going to hear a lot of the same information over and over, so I do apologize, but each one of the departments may be looking for a lot of the same things in students, but may have like 1 or 2 bullet points that's a little bit different. So biostats and informatics, the minimum courses required are multivariate calculus, which some schools call calculus 3, and linear algebra. And from what I understand, those are pretty hard and fast minimum course requirements. You can always reach out to the department specifically to see if they would accept some of their courses, but that would have to be a decision made at the department level, not at our admissions office level. You'll certainly want to have GRE scores above the 50th percentile, specifically in that quantitative section. And they're really going to be, again, you're going to hear that same word, quantitative, over again. They're going to be looking for applicants' quantitative abilities and background in public health. And if you don't have something specific in public health, just be sure that you're showing some type of that ability, whether it's through research or work or through other coursework. You know, a lot of the skills are very transferable. Doesn't necessarily have to be exactly in public health. BSHE, again, I apologize if we've already used any of these what are the, like, not bullets, but
abbreviation.
an abbreviation, an acronym.
Yeah.
That's the word I was looking for. Acronym. I apologize if I've already used some of these acronyms without explaining them. We tend to speak our own language here. So if I've said BSHE and have already confused you, it's Behavioral Sciences and Health Education. If you've got some employment or classroom experience in this field of public health, that's certainly a plus. You can see here we've got our average test scores for GRE for these students coming in, and one thing I want to point out on this is the analytical writing score. You can see it's about a 4.43, whereas and that's just for students applying to be getting admitted into BSHE. Our school average is about a 4.2, so you can see that BSHE really does value that analytical writing, and that's something that they're really going to be looking for in that particular department. There's a lot of writing that goes on, grant proposals, curriculum, program development, so that's definitely a strong point that they're looking for. Executive MPH, we mentioned this one briefly. So this is our one program that does require a minimum of 3 years of full-time work experience in a relevant field. And relevant doesn't necessarily have to mean public health, but health services, health field, something along those lines. And also showing professional growth goals or growth related to public health in your application is certainly going to be necessary. You can see here that we've got the average GRE scores for this one, and we do accept the MCAT specifically in this department as well. And this one, just to kind of give some extra insight on this is actually our hybrid program, which means that it's a hybrid distance learning. So you would meet, it's not our traditional 2-year on-campus program that the students that I have here with me right now are part of, and that a vast majority of our students are part of. We usually bring in about 50 to 60 students a year in this program. You have to be on campus one weekend at the beginning and at the end of each semester, and then in that time in between, you do your coursework online, and utilizing whatever our online learning program is. Right now, it's Blackboard. It's about to switch to Canvas or Canva, something like that. Canvas, and and so that would just be discussion boards and turning in your papers digitally and watching videos and having digital interactions with your fellow cohort that way. So it is a little bit different than our traditional 2-year program. And so I think that's one of the reasons why some of the requirements are a little bit different, because they are factoring in full-time work experience into your qualifications for this. So environmental health, or EH. With this one, in terms of prereqs and classes, they definitely want to see college-level biology and chemistry. Calculus, college-level stats, and OChem are highly recommended. Those classes are not set, but you do absolutely have to have a college-level biology and chemistry, and those other classes are just very much recommended to be successful in this program. This, along with EPI and BIOS, are three math and science heaviest of our departments. And so students in this one are generally looking at careers that are going to focus on maybe toxicology or water and sanitation hygiene, maybe working with a lot of GIS skills. Graphic information systems are very relevant to this particular field. So if you've got some experience in that, this could be a great track for you. So epidemiology, you can see here that one college math course, preferably calculus, and one college science course, and really they do prefer biology in that. Those are required. If you are looking to do the MSPH, which is the Masters of Science in Public Health, that does require calculus as a prereq. And if you're thinking what's the difference between an MPH and an MSPH, the MPH is really designed to be a kind of a terminal degree where you can immediately enter the workforce and be ready for that once you graduate. Whereas the MSPH is a great track for students that think they may want to stay in academia and pursue research or pursue a PhD. So do you guys have, as all EPI students here, do you guys have any extra insight on maybe some things that you think maybe helped your EPI application? Or any classes that you took that you found especially helpful, any undergrad classes that you found especially helpful once you got into the program?
Well, I did take a biostatistics course, so I think that helped a lot, because I think if you have no statistics or no calculus experience, that first biostats course would probably be pretty challenging. That being said, if it's not a requirement, you would probably still be okay if you're admitted. You are clearly qualified to be here, but I think it is very helpful to go ahead and take that in undergrad because even the epi courses are very biostats based. So your basic epidemiology courses, even if it's not the biostatistics course, are going to be using biostats for both years.
I took 4 years I was working for 4 years before coming here, so I had taken a statistics course in college, but it was like pretty much 7 years earlier and didn't remember any of it. And so, as Kate said, like, I mean, it's helpful to have for sure if you come in with some knowledge, but in the end, they're very good at leading you and walking you through it, assuming you don't know too much. So I ended up being okay.
And with TA hours, you know.
Yeah, there's plenty of opportunities for extra help as needed. So.
The faculty are very friendly and very helpful, especially during that first year when you're with EPI. It's like very much learning a new language, so it's very much they like help you through that. And so I had taken a basic epidemiology course before I had come here, which is not offered at a lot of undergrads, but it had given me just a basic understanding of what I could expect coming here. But even if you don't have that, you are in good hands here, just guaranteed.
Yeah. All right, so next up is Health Policy and Management, or HPM. So again, it's a little bit different depending on if you're doing the EMPH program or the MSPH program. So there's no, for either one, well, for the MSPH program, they really do want to see 1 semester of calculus. For the MPH program, there's no set prereqs, but, you know, some strong quantitative skills and some math is certainly going to be helpful, along with GRE scores above the 50th percentile is certainly going to be beneficial in getting into this particular program. And with this one, when you're going to either do the policy track or the management track, and just to kind of give you an idea about the two, the policy is a little bit more, is more geared to students that may want to work in government, legislation, maybe working on, you know, healthcare improvement policy and working maybe with the Affordable Care Act, or working for lobbying groups or interest groups that are helping to improve healthcare policy. And the management side is a bit more private sector based, so maybe students that want to work for a consulting firm like Deloitte, or maybe work in hospital administration or finance. So there are kind of 2 different tracks within that. And I think finally we've got global health, and I think Nimi can speak to a little bit of this one too, because she's global epidemiology, which means she's kind of a mix. She lives in both worlds. And with this one, there's no set course requirement, but they do. I will say this: they do give preference, admissions preference to any students that have shown previous experience in the global arena. So that could mean Peace Corps. Previous work abroad, mission trips abroad, study abroad programs, volunteer experiences abroad. So those kind of students are going to be the ones that those applications are going to stand out more. And you can see GRE scores in the 65th percentile or higher are considered competitive. So it is a bit more competitive for this one in terms of GRE scores for global health. And Nimi, you got anything to add in terms of that, or what you think helped with your application?
I think for me personally, I think taking a language requirement as an undergrad and like following up with that really helped me. I had done like international summer research programs, but I think it was the focus on language that helped me even in here, like applying for practicum and things like that, even moving forward. So,
and what language was that?
Spanish.
Okay,
so,
great.
Yeah.
And it's kind of off topic with this, but I think it goes in line. One thing that students really appreciate about our program is that we have a flat tuition rate, meaning that full-time, you're considered full-time as a graduate student at 9 credit hours. So you're paying the same to take 9 credit hours as you are if you're taking 18. And I don't want you to take 18 credit hours as a graduate student. Please don't come here and do that. I would like you to survive. But all that to say is that the minimum required to complete the public health degree is 42 credit hours. But a vast majority of our students are graduating with in the mid to low 50s, 53, 54 credit hours, because they're taking advantage of that flat tuition rate. Whether that's here within the School of Public Health, maybe taking some extra classes to get some electives, or utilizing the classes on the undergrad side and maybe beefing up their language skills, you know, taking a Spanish or a French class or something like that, or something fun like a painting or like something to de-stress and get out of what we call the Rollins bubble. It's very easy to get into that here. And
I actually took a class my first semester on the undergrad campus just to keep up with my med school applications to show I'm still interested in science courses, and I took a human physiology course in the undergrad campus. It definitely is a very different vibe, you know, 3 days a week. It's in a completely different part of campus, so you have to be prepared to be out of the Rollins bubble, as we were talking about. But I really appreciated the fact that I could do that. And also their nursing school is right next door. So I know people who are interested in getting like registered dietitian degrees after this, something like that.
Yeah.
Very
so,
cool.
yeah, we have a lot of students to take school of nursing classes, business school classes, law school classes, and then various classes on the undergrad side. So some for credit, some not necessarily for credit, just because the opportunity's there. Okay, so moving on into the key tips and advisement. First and foremost, I'm going to try to sear into your brain the date of January 5th. So this is our priority deadline. And what that means is that if you get your application into us by this day, you will be automatically considered for our merit-based scholarships. Additionally, after this, applications are only accepted as a space is available after this deadline. So as we mentioned earlier, you're applying directly to a department, and those departments are making those decisions. After January 5th, a department at any time could reach capacity and stop accepting applications. So if you've got your application ready or you're just missing a couple of things, you really don't want to sit on it and just wait. You want to try to get it in as soon as possible. Another thing to remember with that January 5th deadline, that is getting it in our office, not into SOFIS. So when you submit it to SOFIS, number one, you can't officially submit it, or we won't get it until it is officially complete. So if you're missing letters of rec or a transcript or your GRE scores, if something is missing, we won't get it. So be sure that it's complete. They will then have to verify it and make sure you're not a robot or whatever it is that they're doing to verify, and then get it submitted to us. And that verification and submission to us process can take a few weeks, and maybe up to 3 weeks or so. So what I always tell students is to shoot for getting it into SOFIS by early December, and then that would give it time to get verified and submitted to us by January 5th. So you really want to work backwards from that deadline. Add SPH admissions at emory.edu to your address book. So if you're getting things from us, it's not going to your spam filter. Apply for financial aid early. And so I have ASAP on there right now because if you haven't filled out FAFSA yet, just stop listening to this and go do that right now. For the first time, this year for the first time, FAFSA opened up in either early or mid-October. It opened early this year. And so the sooner you can fill that out, the better. Some of our financial aid options are more first come, first serve versus need-based. So the sooner you can get that financial aid application in, that FAFSA in, the better off you'll be. And then you'll obviously want to start searching for some external scholarships. I would start doing that now, and we've got October through December, but there's no reason to stop in December. Just, keep searching until until the semester starts and until you're here in school, and even then maybe you could find some. Unfortunately in the world of EMPH, there's not a huge amount of funding out there in terms of at what the universities can provide. So we always really try to encourage students to look for external scholarships, because you may be eligible for something that's not specific to EMPH, but could be specific to you because of where you're from, your background, what you've already studied, what university you went to as undergrad. There are so many out there that have such set specifications. So we really encourage you to look for those. Okay, so talking about your GRE and GPA. Again, as we mentioned earlier, there's no one piece that weighs more than other, or that's more important than another piece. So if you think you're strong in one area, if you think you're weak in one area, just be sure you show your strengths across the board. It's going to be factored into all other components of your application. You'll want to give yourself enough time to study for the GRE. Take a test prep course if possible. Pick up a prep book off of Amazon, or they're also at your local library. I never thought about that, but I was at my library the other day, and I just saw a whole row of them. I was like, oh, what a great idea. And I'm sure that if you're currently an undergrad, I'm sure your undergrad has a ton of those as well. So it's not something you have to shell out a ton of money for, because I know those prep courses are expensive. But, you know, a book is great. You can take the test, get a general idea of where you stand, and get a good idea of what you need to go back and focus on. And I think even online there are a few free test preps, at least enough to give you an idea of where your strengths and weaknesses are.
Or borrow one from a friend. I took one after a friend had taken the GRE. She let me use her book. So.
Options are out there. Be sure that you're looking at the courses that are fit for the academic programs you're pursuing. If you want to do EPI, hopefully you're not only taking English comp classes and you're getting in some math and sciences in there. That's going to be important. And again, look at your stats, the stats that we just reviewed at. This is really going to be your comparison for what we're looking for in admitted students. So letters of recommendation. Who you get your letters from is really going to depend on where you are, I guess, kind of in your life stage, for lack of a better phrase. If you're currently an undergrad, or you know, maybe just a couple of years out, we really do want to see at least one of those come from academia, at least one come from a professor. You know, admittedly, if you're an undergrad right now and you can't get one professor to write a letter of rec, that's going to throw up some red flags for us. So be sure that you're having that. If you've been out of school for a while, you know, we certainly understand that you may not still have those strong connections with professors and educators there. So you can certainly look to the professional world for those mentors, supervisors, something along those lines. And I shouldn't have to say this, but we have to every year. No personal references. I'm sure everybody's mom or best friend or dad could write a wonderful, glowing personal recommendation about them. But as you can imagine, that's not the kind of recommendation we're looking for. So what you're wanting them to write about. I think one of the biggest mistakes students tend to make when getting a letter of recommendation is they're like, well, you know, I took this one professor's class and I got an A in it, so I'm going to ask her to write the letter. And then we get it, and it's clearly just a form letter. It is clear that this professor didn't know you, and that, you know, it was, who knows what kind of class it was. Maybe it was one of those 100-person lecture classes, and it's pretty clear a form letter, and that's not what we're looking for. We really want to see letters come from people that can truly speak to your academic abilities, and people that can really speak to your ability to succeed in this kind of graduate program. It might help if you have your personal statement ready, as well as your resume. It can help to provide that to your recommenders. That can kind of give them some insight as to why you're doing this and why you want to pursue public health. Definitely give them enough time. Please don't come to your writer and ask, I need this. I would say at least 3 weeks, at least. Please don't give them any time less than that. I think that's a fair amount of time. And again, like we just kind of talked about, choose quality over position or title. That's really what we want to see. So current students that are here, do you guys have any insight? Who did you guys get to write your letters?
So I got one letter from a biochemistry professor because I thought having a strong science rec would be beneficial. I got another from my thesis advisor, who was a public health professor as well. But I had a different sort of relationship with her because I worked with her more of like, she was like, it was like a mentor-mentee sort of relationship rather than just professor-student. Mm-hmm. And I had a third one from a Spanish professor, so humanities rather than science.
Yeah.
I think I had the same consideration. I had one letter from a chemistry professor who I was really close to, and some of the techniques that I learned utilized in public health. So I had one letter from a Spanish professor because I was applying for the GLEPI, the Global Epidemiology Program, and then I had one letter from a poverty studies professor because I was interested in the humanities aspect.
I worked for 3 years by the time I was applying, so all of mine were actually professional. 2 were from the lab setting I was working in at the time, one from like my proper boss, like principal investigator, one from more of a mentor type person in the lab, and then one was also professional but from my undergraduate experience, and she was a professor at the university, but I knew her from doing an internship with her.
Okay, so your statement of purpose and objectives. This used to be called personal statement, I believe, and Sophie's just recently changed it. So if you've heard me say personal statement earlier, this is what we're talking about. So the thing here, this is where we really want to know anything about you that is not in your personal statement. I'm sorry, that's not already reflected in your application. So, you know, don't rehash your transcripts, your grades, the classes you took, the jobs you had, things like that. We know all of that. This is really about why you got into public health. I mean, you want to avoid some cliches like, I want to save the world. I mean, that's pretty obvious. But, you know, no 3-year-old says they want to be an epidemiologist. So, like, at what point did this particular field maybe Kate did, I don't know.
No, I didn't.
So like at what point did, and also, you know, public health is still kind of a new field. I think when you tell people sometimes that you work in public health or you want to pursue public health, they may look at you with a blank face of like, well, what does that mean?
People still ask me that.
Yeah.
They say, what is epidemiology? Well, actually, what is public health?
Yes.
So
yeah.
Define that in your statement of purpose, what it means to you. And
yes, yeah. So, you know, I think it's important for you to take this time to talk about what sparked this interest and why is this something you want to do. You know, did an experience with a close family member or a close friend open your eyes to maybe some disparities or chronic illness or infectious disease? You really want to talk specifically about your career goals and how you want to contribute to the field and what academic program you're looking at. And certainly get people to read it. You know, it can be very easy to miss miss small typos and you know, things that make sense, things that you think make sense, but on paper they don't. So it always helps to have people to read over it. Do you guys have any insight or tips on that?
I would also recommend writing about why you think Rollins specifically is right for you.
Yes.
I did, in my personal statement, I wrote about, you know, how I got interested in public health and epidemiology specifically and kind of the path I took to get to the application process. But then I highlighted why I thought Emory was really good for what I wanted, and then kind of identifying some faculty members I thought were really aligned with my interests. So that, I think, helped.
Yeah.
I think most of my personal statement was like very personalized to the epidemiology department, why I liked it, and like I defined epidemiology because like people don't understand what it is, and if you're going into the field, you should have an understanding of what it is at the very least, and understand and seeing like how I could fit into the field as it currently is, and how I could like move forward. And then that was my personal statement.
Yeah, it's definitely important to touch on your qualifications and say maybe specifically highlight something in the rest of your application that you think makes you especially qualified or gives you good experience to continue on in the field of public health. But I wouldn't spend too much time going back over things that are already in the rest of your application, because your strong academics are shown in your transcripts, so you don't have to repeat that. Just things like that. Use it as an opportunity to talk about things that aren't in the rest of your application.
Yeah. Also, it's okay to not have already had a live public health
Yes.
experience.
Yeah.
Like, I came from a science background, which I think is relatively common in public health, but it was not related to public health at all. I just talked about how I found out about public health and how some experiences led me to it, but it wasn't about actually having that experience.
Yeah, that's really important to note. All right, so highlighting your experiences, I think that's a good segue for this next slide. Again, going back over that, a lot of what we're looking for doesn't necessarily have to be directly related to public health. So many of these skills are very transferable. If you can do research in neuroscience, or what were you doing research in, Anisha?
I was doing research in molecular biology and virology work.
Yeah, so if you can do research in that, you can do public health research, and some of that is very transferable. Yeah. To public health. So be sure that you're talking about all that. Don't leave something out because you think it's not applicable. We really need to have a very full picture of you as an applicant. And so you'll be able to show us all of this if you include a resume or a CV. Okay, so with that, you can see my contact information is up here. It's emily.lakemaker@emory.edu. We've got a link here for the academic departments as well. And if you want to be connected, so if you've got any specific questions that we don't get to tonight, so we're going to open it up to questions here for the next 20 minutes and get through as many as we can. But you can also email me directly if you want to get in contact with our student ambassador group to speak with current students in any of our departments, including the ones that are here tonight with us. So with that, we're going to open up our questions and go from there. It looks like we've got a lot. So bear with us as we go through these. bear with us as we go through these, and we will get through as many as we can. And like I said, if we didn't get to your question tonight, we will. You can just email me directly. Okay, so Samantha is asking, even though you have to choose a specific discipline, will or can a student take classes across all disciplines? Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I didn't have any global experience working abroad or studying abroad, but I'm very interested in pursuing a career in global health. So being in the epidemiology department, I think I've probably taken almost all of my electives in the global health department. And a lot of them are actually cross-registered, so they count for either department.
Yeah.
You're also required to take the introductory class in every department.
Mm-hmm.
So regardless of which one you're in, you're going to take the intro level to everything else.
Yeah. So you're not siloed at all. Alan is asking, what is the average GMAT score for non-executive management students? So honestly, Alan, I don't have the average for that because we have so few that utilize that one. I would recommend reaching out to the department that you're wanting to apply to, and they can probably give you a good idea of what a competitive score that would be if it's one that they accept. Brian is asking, is this session just for MPH admissions? I'm interested in the PhD. Yes, this one is specifically addressing just MPH. If you are interested in our PhD programs, feel free to shoot me an email, Brian, and I can connect you with our PhD coordinators. Louisa is asking, where would I rank my 3 programs? Would I still have to pay for all 3 if only one department reads my score? Okay, so to review this again, when you apply via SOFIS, you will just apply to your top program. So on the SOFIS application, just indicate whether that's, let's say for instance that's health policy management. You'll, in the menu when it's asking you what department you want to apply to, that's what you'll put. Once we receive your application in our office, you will then receive an email specifically from us at the Rollins School of Public Health requesting your your second and third choices. If you apply to 3 choices via SOFIS, you will have to pay to 3 choices. If you only apply to that top choice via SOFIS and submit your second and third to us directly from that email that we send you, you will only pay for 1 selection. So I hope that makes sense. Taurus is asking, for letters of recommendation, if 3 are sent, will they all be read? Or will the 3rd only be read if the admissions committee is on the fence? That's a really good question. So 3 will be read, but don't send more than 3. Don't try to submit 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Don't get crazy with it. But all 3 will be read, but if you do submit more than 3, those remaining ones will not. And the way that SOFIS actually works with that is that your first 2 letters of recommendation SOFIS will consider your application. Say for instance, you've submitted for 3 to be submitted. You put in for 3 letters of recommendation to be submitted on your behalf. And all parts of your application are complete except for 1 missing letter. SOFIS will consider your application complete and go ahead and send it to us. And then once that 3rd letter comes in, we will get it. So basically, they're not going to hold your application up for 1 letter of rec.
That happened to me. That was really nice.
Yeah.
Because I had one professor who moved away and is very difficult contacting her.
Yeah. So, and then if it ultimately even ever comes in, it's a minimum of 2.
Yeah.
So, but once it does, the admissions committee will get it. Okay, Melissa is asking, can you talk a bit more about the joint MPH MBA? I'm interested in how the programs are integrated both in terms of curriculum and day-to-day life, location, logistics, social life, especially since the program is 2.5 years where others are 3. I'm curious about how the program manages the slightly shorter timeline and whether that means the programs are just well integrated or if it's a much heavier, intense course load. So Melissa, they're not integrated at all. The way that any of our dual degree programs work is that you have to apply to both programs completely separately and get accepted into both programs before you can be a dual degree student. So say you get into both the MPH and the MBA program, you would spend year 1 at the MBA program and doing exclusively MBA classes, year 2 at Rollins doing exclusively Rollins classes, and then that last semester back at the business school. And that summer between your your year at public health and that last semester back at the business school would be the summer that you're completing your practicum requirement as well, which is 200 to 400 hours of applied public health work experience. I will say that the time that you're here is pretty intense. We cram in a significant amount of credit hours in the, I think it's something like 36, 38 credit hours or so that you do in the time that you're here as a dual degree student for the public health program. In terms of location, you know, both programs are right here on Emory's main campus, but in terms of social life, I think it would probably be pretty segmented. You would probably spend most of your time with business school classmates in the year that you're at the business school, and then most of your time with Rollins students when you're at the School of Public Health. Do any of you guys know any dual degree students right now?
MD, MPH,
MD.
but that's a little different.
Yeah, MD, it is a little bit different. Yeah.
I see some the nursing students.
Yeah.
And MPH.
The two schools aren't actually physically that far from each other.
No.
It's probably a 10-minute walk,
Yeah.
so that's not a geographic issue.
Yeah, it's not like you would have to, you could certainly stay in the same department or something.
Right.
That wouldn't be an issue at all. And we've got about 9 or 10 dual degree programs. So there's a lot of dual degree students spread out. Like you guys, you said, you know, nursing, you know, MD program, MD students. We've also got physical therapy, physician assistant, and a handful of others. So a lot of different options for that. Vincent is asking, for HPM, if we've been out of school for more than 4 years, can our letters of rec come for professional resources? Yep. If you've been out of school, for any department, that's not just HPM. So if you have, you know, we don't expect you to still be in close contact with those professors that far out. So feel free to have those come from the professional realm. Melissa's asking for HPM, is it possible or feasible to sort of combine the two tracks? Yeah, absolutely. You know, students can do a mix of the policy and the management. And, you know, again, and going back to some of the first questions, you can do a mix of all of our departments. So you're never just siloed into the one thing that you decided to come in on. There's a lot of variety.
It's the same question.
Okay, it looks like Vincent asked the same question there, so we can move on. And Vincent's asking, what are the average GRE scores and GPA for HPM? I don't know those off the top of my head since I work with all 7 of our departments. I think that would be a better question for the department itself, and they can kind of give you a good idea. But really what you're going to want to go off of is the overall scores for all admitted students. So you're looking at about a 157 on both quantitative and qualitative sections, and that's across the board for all admitted EMPH students. Okay, so Melissa is asking, is admissions rolling, i.e. if you submit sooner, do you get a decision sooner, or is there a set decision release date? So if you get your application by that January 5th priority deadline, there's no set admissions release date, but the soonest they'll start going out is late January, and it really does depend on when you apply. So if you get it in by that January 5th priority deadline, you'll be in that first batch that starts getting released in late January. Not to say you'll absolutely get it at that time frame or you'll be in the immediate first one, but you'll know sooner than later for that. And then after that, if you apply after that deadline, it's usually about a 6 to 8 week wait once your application has been submitted, depending on where they are in the process. So did you have a shorter time frame or a longer time frame?
No, that just sounds like a long time. So
yeah,
I would submit early.
So get in early.
I'm very impatient. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I applied like September, October, and I heard back in end of January.
Yeah.
I think I also applied maybe November, and then I heard back end of January or beginning of February.
Yep.
I applied later. I think my SOFIS was actually verified and sent out like relatively close to the deadline, which is only a result of me deciding sort of last minute to apply to MPH programs. So I don't recommend that because it's a little stressful if SOFIS is going to verify your application on time, but that's pretty late to apply, and I heard back the first week of March, I think.
Yeah, so we try to get them out as quickly as possible because we know you guys obviously have life decisions to make. These are important things. So Aaron's asking, is there a particular person who can tell us if our course prereqs qualify for EPI? So on this last slide that we have, the academic department contacts, this link, you can basically, if you just once you get to our website, if you just do a search for ADAPS, that's Assistant Director of Academic Programs, that they're basically our academic advisors. Each department has either one or two, and they're going to be your best contacts for how to get involved with that and figure out exactly who's going to be the best resource for that. So definitely reach out to your academic advisors in that department. I apologize because I know I'm going to butcher some names. Ilashu is asking, I'm an international applicant. My English language test results from 2011. Can I use that test result for my current application? So that is 5 years. I believe they have to be, it may depend on when in 2011. I believe they have to be no more than 5 years old for TOEFL scores. And we're in 16 right now, right? So yeah. So depending on when in 2011 you took it, could really depend on if you have to submit if you have to take a new test. Jack is asking, why is the biostats program so small? Are there fewer employment opportunities with masters in biostats? Absolutely not. Excuse me.
I would say it's actually the opposite.
Yeah.
I think that as a biostatistician, you can find really good, well-paying work right out of your MPH, and there are a lot of employment opportunities for biostats.
I would say it's so small because it's kind of a self-selecting group of when you look at the prereqs. Most people aren't taking calculus level 3 and linear algebra in college, and the people that are the ones that are on the track to do a course, a program like biostats and informatics. So it's not that there's not opportunities, because it is, like Kate said, more or less the opposite. It's our biostat students that, everybody that, I don't know of any student that struggled or that didn't land something once they graduated, but biostat students, I would think, would have the most opportunity to be choosy and maybe, kind of have some more leverage.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Yeah. Samantha is asking, to clarify, if I've been out of school for more than 5 years, having an academic reference is not mandatory. You are correct, Samantha. Carthy is asking, would you recommend explaining low GPA or other shortcomings in your application in the personal statement, or should you really stick to your experience and interest? If it was something like maybe an illness or a large family emergency or something like that, you could mention it, Carthy, but really, you never want to take an opportunity to point out shortcomings when really you just want to focus on your strengths. So if it was like maybe one set specific experience, like a serious illness, that could be something you could talk about, but outside of that, I wouldn't recommend it. Alexa is asking, is one type of experience preferred over another? No, not really. I mean, work experience, research experience, volunteer experience. I mean, all the student panelists here came in with a wide range.
I think if you talk to people across the departments, it's so varied where people came from and what they did before getting here. I think that's true to public health in general, and I think you really just need to explain how your experience led you to where you are.
I think it's just the quality of experience, the amount of time you worked with them, or how you explained it in your personal statement, how you explained it in that the work experience log that you have, the opportunity.
And I just had student internships, basically, summer jobs. They were relevant to the health field in some aspect, but I never had full-time work or anything like that when I applied.
Yeah. Ruth is asking, what is the average MCAT score for EPI applicants? Again, kind of like the GMAT question, since we get so few, we don't really have set data on that. But again, if you reach out directly to the EPI department, they could give you a good idea of what a competitive MCAT score would be if you're using that in place of the GRE. Maeve is asking, what makes Rollins unique compared to other graduate schools? Well, I have two answers for this, and then I'm going to turn it over to the students. But number one, I would say our close connection, and not only both figuratively and literally, I guess, with the CDC. So it is literally next door to us. I mean, we're all, if the blinds weren't down, we would all be looking at it right now, but all the blinds are closed, and it's kind of starting to get dark. But so it's physically next door to us, and we also just have a really good partnership and working relationship with the CDC. About 800 alumni currently work there, and we have a lot of students that work there while going to school whether it's doing, working on a research project or through our work study program called REAL, which is Rollins Earn and Learn. So those opportunities are certainly there, which no other school of public health can offer. My second answer is our student life. So I think grad school can sometimes feel a little bit commutery, and we'll just assume that that's a word. We'll make it a word. And, so students show up, they go to class, and then they go home. And that's not the case here. Despite us being a large program, about 1,200 students, it's very tight-knit. Students are very active. We've got about 18 chartered student organizations just within Rollins. That's not Emory as a whole. That's just at the School of Public Health. Addressing all sorts of different fields of public health and areas of interest and areas of research and various demographic groups. Whatever it is, there's probably a club that addresses it. And if not, you can start it when you get here. And we can have 19 chartered student orgs. So it's very easy to get involved. They do all sorts of events, from social events to professional and networking and meetings and brown bag lunches. And in fact, we're right in the middle of our student government elections, and last night there was a debate for the 2 students that are running for president. So it's very easy to get involved, and I think that is definitely a thing that makes us unique. What about you guys as our students? You're the experts.
I think what I really like about Emory is the student life aspect. Like, there is such a great community. It is not about, you are right, and it's not very community, that you have the opportunity to go to lunch and learn. You have the opportunity to connect with, essentially, because public health is such a small field, these are going to be people you work with after you graduate. You will see them. And so that community is fantastic.
I agree with the student life aspect, and I think that didn't really completely make sense to me until I visited schools, but I visited 3 different schools after I applied, and I was impressed by Emory specifically. It's a very welcoming community, and it can be stressful to have 1,000 students here, but it can also be a huge advantage because of what Nimi just said about those being your future coworkers. And we're housed in basically 2 buildings. So you walk around, and because you're in the Rollins bubble, all you're seeing all day is other public health students and other faculty, and it's such a great environment to be in because you're just completely invested in your public health education, and it's only 2 years, so that's really what you want.
Yeah, I would say the best way to answer that question is to come visit. If you're admitted, come to visit Emory, or if you just have a free weekend, come wander around. We'll give you a tour. And I think that really made a big difference for me. That was just sort of the main turning point in my decision. And I'll add to that, also the faculty here are awesome. They are so involved with the students. They are constantly offering opportunities and are always available for just random public health discussions or helping you with your coursework. So that's a big plus for me.
Yeah. So Jack is asking, letters of recommendation. My first choice is biostats. I haven't had a math class in over a decade, but I took OChem this year while working at another program. Would a letter of rec from one of those professors help? Meanwhile, I've worked as a private tutor for high school math and college science and writing. Yeah, absolutely. I think something like that would help. You really want to be sure that you've got those class prereqs that are required. And if not, I would recommend reaching out directly to the department to kind of talk about what your transcript looks like. Talking with the advisor there, her name is Melissa Shear, and looking at what your transcript looks like to see, if some of those classes could be considered if you don't have all of the set classes. And they can kind of talk to you a little bit better about what your first year would look like and the type of math that they're doing. But I think those type of letters of rec would certainly be good. I mean, organic chemistry is a great class to take. Ronnie is asking, is there a link on the SOFIS application that will be sent to our references, or will we have to submit them? You will put in the information of who you're asking to write, including their email address, and then a link will be sent to them, and they will fill out that form, and then it gets sent back to SOFIS. So that's how that process works. It's pretty direct. Kendra's asking, is it worthwhile to reach out to directly faculty that you'd like to work with, or is that too forward? At this point, I don't think so. It can't hurt. And on our website, you can filter down faculty by research area and try to get a good sense of who's doing the type of research that you're interested in. It certainly can't hurt to reach out. Leah is asking, I'm coming from anthropology background, but I'm applying to the EPI program. Would that be a wise choice? If you've got the math and science background and those strong quantitative scores on the GRE, absolutely not. You know, and if that's something that you're willing to make that transition to and kind of knowing what you're getting into, then I think that's absolutely fine. I certainly wouldn't discourage you against it.
That's not too far off either.
Yeah, anthropology is still, you're still utilizing a lot of quantitative skills with that. Yeah, I always have to think in my head, quantitative, qualitative. UN is asking, hi, thank you for the information. I wondered if a master's in health communication is typical for a PhD student, profiles in BSHE. So I think you're asking if you're applying for PhD, if they typically have masters in health communications. So I can say that all of our PhDs PhD programs do require completed master's work. We don't really have PhD programs where you can come into straight out of undergrad like a lot of schools do. So I can say that they will. And our PhD students are coming from all sorts of backgrounds, some with public health and some without. Deanna is, what are you looking for the experiences section of SOFIS application? I think we covered a lot of that, just anything in terms of work, research, volunteer. Those are all the kind of things that you'll want to be talking about in that section. And OPMI, I'm sorry if I'm totally butchering your name. Can I use a USMLE score instead of a GMAT or GRE? I don't think so. But again, a lot of those are at the department level, and in certain departments like epidemiology, we have some various different international test scores that we accept. So I would recommend reaching out directly to your department.
Well, so if you have a USMLE score, then you also have an MCAT. So I would just send your MCAT to the medical licensing exam.
Okay.
So if you have,
I've never even heard USMLE.
Yeah, it's just a licensing exam for after medical school.
Oh,
so
great.
You would have an MCAT in that case. So I would send that.
MCAT specifically for EPI would be accepted, and in all the other departments, you would just need to reach out directly to see if they would accept an MCAT score. So with that, guys, we do have to wrap up. It is 7 o'clock, and I want to be respectful of my students' time that are here right now. So it looks like we didn't get to all the questions, but you do have my email address. It's It's emily.lakemaker@emory.edu. So please feel free to reach out to me directly with these questions. I'm more than happy to help address them and make sure that we can get to them. Looks like there were maybe about 7 or so that we couldn't get to. But with that, we are going to wrap up. So thank you so much to everybody that joined us tonight. We will be getting this up on our YouTube channel within the next like I said, 3 to 5 business days. So you can go there, and I'll be emailing everyone that registered for this with that link once it's up. So if you want to go back and review something. So with that, we're going to wrap it up, and thank you guys so much for attending.